Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you and welcome. Today we're going to explore a really fascinating set of verses from the Quran. Verses that establish this profound balance between, justice and mercy, between order and compassion. We're going to see how these divine laws touch on everything from murder all the way to family inheritance. Okay, let's dive right in.
So, let me ask you a question. Imagine a society that's just caught in this terrible loop. A crime happens, and that leads to revenge, which then, of course, sparks even more revenge. It's like a fire that can just consume entire communities. So, how do you stop it? How do you break that devastating cycle? This was the critical problem facing society when these verses were revealed. You see, before Islam, the Arabian Peninsula was really governed by tribal customs, and justice was, well, it was anything but equal. If someone from a powerful tribe was killed, their tribe might demand the lives of 10 people from a lesser tribe in return. It was all about status. A noble's blood was considered way more valuable. And this, as you can imagine, led to these endless destructive blood feuds. Then, Islamic law came and introduced something totally new, a radical foundation, equal justice, where all souls are equal before the law. And crucially, it provided a real path to forgiveness.
So the first part of the solution is a legal principle we find in verse 178 of Surah Al-Baqarah. It's a system designed to give you justice, but, and this is so important, with a crucial off-ramp for mercy. It's a concept known as qisas.
And the key distinction here, the thing you have to get, is that qisas is not uncontrolled vengeance. It's the exact opposite. It's a structured, legal process of equal retaliation. What this system does is it takes the power out of the hands of angry mobs and places it firmly within the rule of law. This makes sure the punishment fits the crime and that only the actual perpetrator is held responsible.
Now this part was truly revolutionary for its time. By stating, the free for the free, the slave for the slave, the female for the female, the Quran declared a radical kind of equality. The life of a woman was equal to the life of a man. The life of a slave was equal to the life of a free person. This completely dismantled that old tribal hierarchy. It established that all human life has equal worth in the eyes of the law, a total game changer.
So here's the crucial point. The law actually gives the victim's family a choice. It's like a fork in the road. Path 1 is demanding equal justice through qisas. But path 2, and this is that off-ramp we talked about, is choosing mercy. The family can decide to forgive the murderer and instead accept a financial compensation, which is known as diya. This gives them a way to find closure without any more bloodshed.
And the Quran itself, it frames this choice not as a weakness, but as a divine gift. Providing an alternative to the death penalty is described right here as an alleviation, a lightening of the burden, and a mercy from God. It's a beautiful acknowledgement of the heavy emotional weight on the victim's family, and it provides this merciful way to ease it, which benefits everyone, the family and the whole society.
Okay, now this next verse might sound like a paradox at first. How can there be life in retribution? But it's actually a really profound legal philosophy. Here's how it works. The very existence of a just, predictable penalty acts as a deterrent for potential murderers. When people know there are serious, real consequences, they are way less likely to commit capital crimes. So, in that sense, the law itself becomes a protector of life for the entire community. It saves lives.
All right, let's move on to the next set of verses and see how this all connects. We're going to pivot now from the broad, societal level of justice, and we're going to zoom in to the intimate level of the family. The Quran lays out principles here to make sure there's harmony and to prevent conflict, especially around what happens after someone passes away.
This next verse introduces the concept of the Wasiyyah, which is the bequest, or the will. Initially, this was a really profound command for believers. It said, when death is near, make a clear will for your parents and relatives. And the goal was simple, but absolutely vital, to preserve family unity, to prevent those bitter, legacy-destroying fights that can so easily happen over inheritance.
And what's so fascinating here is that you can actually see how Islamic law adapted over time. This command to write a will was the foundational first step. Then, later on, in another chapter, Surah An-Nisa, a much more comprehensive system was revealed, with fixed, mandatory inheritance shares for close relatives. Now, this didn't cancel out the will, it actually refined its purpose. The will then became this powerful tool to give assets to people who weren't covered by those fixed shares, like distant relatives or friends or even charities, up to a third of the estate.
Okay, so once a will is made, how do you protect its integrity? That's a huge question, right? The final two verses in this section deal with exactly that.
They lay out this really clear ethical framework to protect a person's final wishes from both intentional corruption and from unintentional but still damaging mistakes.
So the verses give us two very different scenarios. Just picture this. On one hand, you have someone who maliciously alters a will they've overheard, maybe to greedily write themselves a bigger piece of the pie. Then, on the other hand, you have a well-intentioned mediator, someone who fears there's a mistake or an injustice in the will, and so they step in to gently correct it and to make peace between the heirs. Two totally different motivations.
And this just brilliantly illustrates that theme of balance. The judgment for these two acts could not be more different. For the one who corrupts the will, it's a grave sin, and God is all-hearing, all-knowing. But for the person who justly corrects an error to prevent conflict, well, there's no sin on him. In fact, it's a praiseworthy, merciful act, and it reflects God's own attributes of being forgiving and merciful.
So what do we see when we put all these pieces together? What's the big picture? We see a legal framework that is just so deeply concerned with balance. A balance between the rights of the individual and the needs of society, and a balance between the letter of the law and the spirit of mercy.
I think the key takeaway here is this beautiful system of balance. We see justice that's tempered with mercy. We see that the ultimate goal of the law is actually to save lives, not just to punish. We see a legal system that can evolve to meet the community's needs. And we see this incredible emphasis on fairness and integrity, right down to a person's final wishes. It's all connected.
And that leaves us with a final thought to reflect on. These principles were established over 1,400 years ago, but they speak so directly to us today. How might our own modern approaches to conflict, both in our courtrooms and in our own families, be transformed if we gave equal weight to the demands of strict justice and the profound power of active mercy? It's something to think about. Thank you so much for joining me, and peace be upon you.